Welcome to the Roots and Routes. It's bigger than just sports, where community and socioeconomics is the route to our success. I always wished our hometown heroes had the technology during their time to document their journeys, so we'll do it for the rest of them. And we are live on location at the legendary 14th Street Community Center. And today, we have a special guest. And before we get started, we want to make sure you like, share, and subscribe to all the digital platforms. We're on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Fanbase, Twitter, aka X, and much, much more. Waiting to bring you some amazing content. Without further ado, today we are honoring one of the greatest to ever come out of Portsmouth, Ohio, Mr. Al Oliver. Let's put them together for Mr. Oliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hear it for the boy.
We appreciate you coming here, sir. Al is a seven-time, let me make that correction. Mr. Oliver is a seven-time All-Star, a World Series champion in 1971 with the Pittsburgh Pirates, a career hit of 2,743, 303 career batting average. He has 10 seasons with 170 hits or more, 11 seasons batting average over 300, seven-time All-Star, three-time Silver Slugger winner, one-time World Series champion, 1971, and just recently he was introduced as the 2025 inductee into the Pittsburgh Pirates Hall of Fame. Hopefully that's a precursor. And without further ado, we got Mr. Al Oliver to the table. Once again, welcome to the Roots and Routes.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you. Thank you. Well, without further ado, Mr. Oliver, the very first question, and you're no exception to the rule. The very first question we ask to every guest that comes to the Roots and Routes is, if you had 12-year-old Al Oliver in front of you right now, what advice would you give your 12-year-old self?
Okay, we're speaking about baseball.
And that's fine.
And basically, the first thing I would tell this young kid is this. A lot of young kids worry about the home runs. Mm-hmm. They all like to hit home runs. But the key is, in order to hit home runs, you got to hit the ball first. Right. And that's the thing that they sometimes forget. And see, home runs are nice. Major League Baseball went to that, probably about 3 years ago. Batting averages were like 205, 195. They were on the interstate, in other words. And so if the batting averages were like that when I played, they wouldn't have played.
Right.
They would have been home. Because we had guys who could hit the ball. And that was our main objective. But to any young kid today who wants to play baseball, I would advise them to go the baseball route. Basketball and football is fine. But the fact of the matter is the longevity of playing baseball is so much easier. And a lot of times young kids are afraid of getting hit with a baseball. And that's the fear that they have. Mm-hmm. And that's what I used to tell Ty and Sky. Don't worry about getting hit. Or even when I have camps and clinics, I always tell each kid, I said, look, how many in here has ever been hit with a baseball? And so we all raise our hand, including me. Mm-hmm. I've been hit. But think about this. We all are still here.
Right.
So it only hurts for a little while. and that's what I tell them. But baseball is an easy game to play. As far as injuries, you really don't have to worry about it. With the exception of the last couple of years, for whatever the reason, players get hurt running to first base.
Wow.
And I can't figure out how they can get hurt playing baseball when they run in and off the field. Now, I can see basketball. I can see football. But baseball, I think what it comes down to is what they need to do is eat right. and stretch. And I think that's really the problem
Right.
with a lot of these players today is the reason why they're getting hurt so easily. And that goes to all sports. Nutrition is very important. And so that's what I would definitely tell them to do. Use the whole field. If you are a left-hand hitter, a base hit to left field just as good as if you are a right-hand hitter hitting the ball to right field. They both count. So hit the ball where it's pitched. Don't worry about getting home runs because home runs come when you really don't expect it. And it usually comes on a pitch that is usually inside, a pitch that you can pull. Those are the ones that you normally hit home runs on. I never tried to hit a home run, but only one time, only once. And that was in 1977. And I can still remember that because Dave Parker was on deck. And we were playing San Diego. And Gene Tennis, my homeboy,
Right.
was catching, and Raleigh Fingers was pitching. And Raleigh wanted to throw me inside, but Raleigh had this thing of throwing everybody away. He said, "You can't throw this guy inside." And so before I went to the plate, I turned to Dave Parker. I said, "Dave, no need to go into the bat rack. This game is over."
I love it.
That's the kind of confidence that we
Right.
had, back in the day. And I enjoyed it. He threw me a fastball, down and in, lights out, game over, we win. And him and Raleigh argued about that for days, and they still talk about it, right now. You can't throw that guy inside, especially in the strike zone. If you're going to throw him inside, you got to brush him off the plate.
That's supreme confidence. And speaking from an excellent hitter himself, Mr. Oliver, we appreciate, your candidness. So what I want to do, this is season 1, episode 15. We actually call this episode Life's a Hit.
Okay.
Taking off of your book. So what I want to do at this point in time, I want to kind of peel back the layers, kind of let people behind the curtain a little bit, and start with a little bit of when we look at the process of how you became what they call you a scoop, okay. Mr. Oliver. So I want you to kind of give context to your upbringing, the community that you come from, things that you feel like made you the person that you are today.
Good question. I've had some misfortunes in my life, as you can call it, trials and tribulations. I remember when I was in the 6th grade, I was on the C team at Washington School. And after the game, I was coming home and found out that my mother had passed away.
Oh, man.
And I was 11 years old at that time. I was the oldest.
Right.
Paula, my sister, was 9, and Jimmy was just 2. And so
wow,
that was the first one. Sometimes I wonder, how did Dad deal with that?
Right.
To come home from Harbison Walker, go to the bedroom, he kisses his wife, and she's cold.
Oh, my.
And I don't know how he dealt with that. I know he was a tough guy, but something like that, regardless of how tough you are.
Right.
So we got through that. And so, I played Little League, I played Pony League, I played Junior American Legion ball, and I played high school ball. And to be honest with you, I never thought that I was going to be a Major League Baseball player.
Wow.
Because basketball was my game. And it still is.
Right.
I still like basketball better than baseball.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, and then we'll kind of pivot towards the baseball and still continue with your upbringing. So, what is your earliest basketball memory? Like was it somebody that you saw, or you picked up a ball at a certain age, or you got into a league, or how would you describe your early basketball foray?
you know, we had this basket. It was off of the kitchen when we lived over on Kennedy Street.
Okay.
You know, it was a real small basket. And in order to make the basket, it had to be a perfect shot.
Wow.
You know, Dad had hooked that up for me because he was a basketball player. And so that's how I really enjoyed playing basketball, because I had to be real fine with my shots. And back then, you know, you could only watch basketball, pro basketball, maybe once a week.
Right.
You know, it wasn't an everyday thing. And at that time, the Boston Celtics was my favorite team because of Bill Russell.
Correct.
And so I really enjoyed playing basketball because the one thing that I had going for me, and I have to laugh sometimes, and Larry and I talk a lot about it, I had every shot that you could think of.
Right.
But I couldn't take that to Portsmouth High School.
What you mean?
Well, Coach Heller,
Okay.
if he would have saw me doing a hook shot
Okay, I got you.
from the top of the key, he would have had a heart attack.
Really?
Oh, I mean, anybody who played with me, I had all these shots at the park. I mean, unstoppable. Nobody could ever block my shot.
So y'all honed y'all skills out here to the park as well?
Tell me about it.
I want to ask. I'm asking.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you. What really made Larry and I the basketball players that we were was Stevie Battle.
Okay, I've heard
Steve
about
Battle
Steve.
does not
Mr.
get
Battle.
the credit that he should get. Steve Battle was an excellent basketball player.
Right.
And see, Steve knew our moves because we played together out here at Bannon Park.
Right.
So, you know, we couldn't make the moves that we really wanted to
make. they put the reins on y'all a little bit.
They did. They did, because see, Steve would make those passes if you're not watching.
Yeah.
He's something to hit you in the head. and that would have been embarrassing. But Steve Battle really made Larry and I the basketball players that we were. And almost to prove that point, when Steve and I left, Larry, they lost the first game in the district.
Right.
And the Trojans do not lose games
in
the district. You know, maybe the regional.
Right.
But not the district.
That's supposed to be a given.
A given. But Larry was there by himself. And so he really didn't have anybody
around
to feed him.
Okay.
But he was a one-man show.
Right.
I mean, he really had a great season. I wish I could have seen him play his senior year.
Right.
Because he showed out. And he deserved to have been All-American, All-State, and everything else. And they definitely wanted him really bad at Ohio State. Fred Taylor, who was a coach, I don't think he ever got over Larry not coming to Ohio State to play basketball.
Yeah.
And so Larry ended up signing with the Philadelphia Phillies. And so it was a good move for Larry.
So in terms of the home, like what did your I guess at that point just your father, what did he stress to you as a child, to whether it be education? I'm sure it's probably all encompassing, but did you have a dream of making it to the major leagues, or was your first dream going off to college, or what do you believe, looking back on it, like your original dream was?
Dad really wanted me to go to college.
Okay.
He definitely wanted me to go to college. And so all of a sudden, here's Kirk Gentry. He heard that they were having a trial camp down in Salem, Virginia. The Philadelphia Phillies, after me trying out with the Phillies, I did good. Larry went to that same camp. And the Philadelphia Phillies said, Al, do not sign with anyone else until you hear from us. Well, what do? I listen to Kurt. So we drive down to Salem, Virginia. Until years later, I found this out. See, Kurt was playing a game.
Oh, man.
See, Kurt was going to Salem, Virginia.
Right.
He was going to Salem, Virginia to try out for himself. And I didn't find this out until later.
Right.
But Kirk could still run then.
Mm-hmm.
And so the scout couldn't sign me because I was just 17.
Right.
And when you're 17, you have to be 18,
Mm-hmm.
To have a parent's consent.
Okay.
So to this day, I do not know how they got Dad down to Salem, Virginia, because everybody has passed away now. Yeah. But Kirk, in his own way, told me, yeah, they gave me a little change. And I say, I never asked Kirk how much change.
Yeah.
But Kirk did what he had to do. And Kirk was really responsible for me signing with the Pirates as opposed to the Phillies, because they were coming back to the house on a Sunday and they were going to offer me at least $50,000. Wow. Now, in 64, that's a lot of money.
Yes.
That's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
But Larry was always smarter than I was anyway. Larry got that $50,000 the next year, signing with Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
But I was with the right team,
right?
The Pirates, because they had a lot of Latin and black players.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas they're concerned with the Philadelphia Phillies were, they didn't have a lot of black players. And that was their concern. Where are they going to place me?
Right.
And so when they came to the house that Sunday, you talk about somebody who was embarrassed, didn't know what to say. And I told them, I signed with the Pirates. But see, Sid Thrift, who signed me, he knew my dad was a church guy. You know, he was a deacon.
That's big.
And see, knowing Sid Thrift, he didn't know nothing about no scripture. Probably the only scripture that Sid Thrift knew, the Lord is my shepherd. And that's probably the only scripture that he knew. And that is what sold Dad. But all at the same time, the Pirates are going to pay for my education for 2 years. But if I would fall out of college, then that was nullified.
Okay.
And once you start playing minor league ball, you don't have time.
Right.
That's
a lot.
To go back to college. And so I have no regrets about signing with the Pirates. It was a good team for me because we did have a lot of brothers.
Right.
And they were like the brothers that I grew up with. Cracking.
Yeah.
I mean, we could crack with the best of us. I mean, we had some fun growing up in Portsmouth. But it all worked out. And I'm just glad that I did sign with the Pirates.
That was a great move. So,
it was.
So real quickly, I'm going to kind of touch on a couple of your teammates, obviously specifically what Roberto Clemente was like as well. But I want to take a pause real quick. I want to make sure that the audience understands. Again, this was an all-world athlete, Mr. Oliver. All Ohio basketball as well. So he even though his claim to fame was in baseball. So I want you to kind of talk about some of your high school teammates. Y'all played at Grant Gym? Is that where y'all played y'all's high school ball home games at?
Played the last game there.
Wow. So your class was the last one to close out?
To close it out.
Wow.
Yeah, we closed it out. And players who came in, they despised playing at Grant Gym.
Really?
Because number one, it was the largest court.
That's a big court.
In the state of Ohio. And we
big court
would run teams to death.
Right.
I think maybe the worst season, I only played 2 years. A lot of people didn't realize I just played 2 years instead of 3. Okay. And the reason why I played 3, my freshman year, I went to Notre Dame.
See, I'm glad you said that because somebody asked me that about that. Was there a potential that you went to Notre Dame and stayed at Notre Dame? What?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna tell you why I went to Notre Dame.
Okay, talk to us.
I had the audacity
Uh-oh.
to come home with an F
Oh,
on my report card.
Really? No
And
way.
I was a good student.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
What'd you have an F in? You remember?
it had to be something like had something to do with numbers.
Oh man.
Because like English and history, geography, all those things were good. And you know what I started to do, which would have been a huge mistake. If you get an F, if you're smart or dumb, either one, you can come down on one side and it'll look like an A. And I said, no, Al, no, that's not going to work. Because if Dad found that out,
Right.
I would have been whipped.
Man.
And see, back then, you know, whippings. But I didn't get a lot of whipping. Too much about me, you know, because I stuck to the rules. Dad told me in the 4th grade, I never will forget. He said, son, it's 2 things you do. Stay away from bad people.
Right.
And get your rest. I carried that on pretty good. And that's not to say that I was a perfect kid growing up by no stretch of the imagination. But those were the 2 rules that he gave me. He never talked about my basketball, you know, what I was doing wrong on the basketball court. And in baseball, parents very seldom went to baseball games. So basketball was his thing.
Okay.
And he knew the game.
So let me ask you this: Did he play? Did he play at Portsmouth as well?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
He played in the 30s.
Got you.
And it's so funny because I've heard people talk about his basketball prowess.
Right.
And I never get the first time I went to talk to Mike Haley's dad. You know, I enjoyed speaking to the seniors.
Yes.
And I go into Mr. Haley's house. We sit down. And I said, Mr. Haley, I got a question. Who was the best basketball player? Me or my dad? He said, Albert. That's what the seniors called me back then.
Got you.
He said, Albert, your dad was the best basketball player I ever saw.
Love it.
And that includes Michael Jordan.
Wow.
That's
huge.
That leaves me and everybody else out.
Right.
I mean, and I never get this Pauline Taylor. I went to sit on her porch one day, and she told me the same thing.
Wow.
I have never seen anybody so quick and fast as your dad. And so I was fortunate. It was in the genes.
Right.
I think most of my genes came down to Sky. Sky could play.
Yes.
Sky was an excellent
multi-talented.
The only thing about Sky that I really regretted that happened to him. Sky was a point.
Yep.
And they didn't put him in the right position.
Right.
Because Sky, I mean, but the fact of the matter is, Sky could have made Kyrie even better.
Right.
Sky was a facilitator. He could shoot, pass, he could do it all. He was an athlete, an outstanding center fielder, a good quarterback.
Quarterback too, yeah.
But one thing about Sky, he never said anything. He was quiet, and that was a good thing. And what a lot of people don't know about me is I am basically quiet unless I'm asked a question.
Right.
If I'm not asked a question, you would never know that I was in the room. But a lot of people thought that I talked a lot. But what they forgot, the word they left out was I was friendly. And most people that I grew up with, and still to this day, are friendly people.
Right.
that come out of Portsmouth. But a lot of those writers, I would answer questions, and they had never been around anybody like that, except Roberto Clemente.
Mm-hmm.
You asked Roberto a question, he gave you an honest answer, and they couldn't deal with it.
Wow.
They thought he was cocky. Now, growing up in Portsmouth, I never heard the word cocky.
Right.
I didn't know what cocky was. I mean, we were just flat out confident people that believed in ourselves.
Right.
And that was because the community made us that way. We had to do what was right. We couldn't get caught. And all that paid off, throughout my career.
So let's talk about a little bit more of the community as well. So you said you went to Washington School, is that correct?
I sure did.
Can you speak on any of the teachers that you care to speak about, and just what that environment was? And so if you went to Portsmouth in the 60s, so where to middle school at?
Grant Junior High.
Grant Junior High. So
I went to Grant.
So walk us a little bit through Washington School.
Okay. First of all, we had some great teachers. Mrs. Taylor,
I've heard,
was my first grade teacher. And then I moved on up, and we had Mrs. Gilmore.
Miss Gilmore.
We had Mr. Clayton. We had Mrs. Ferguson, who was my next door neighbor on Kenny Street, whose husband was the principal at Washington School.
Right.
And Mr. Tanner, we had him, but we had some strict teachers. And the thing about it is, we couldn't act up in school because they were a Sunday school teacher.
Right.
And they always had an eye on you. And they did not want to ever let my dad know, that I was back there acting up. But I had some guys that I was with could act up. Some of them are still around, but I've lost so many of them.
Wow.
My age have passed on. Guys I grew up with, just amazing how many I've lost. The girls and boys. And it makes you think, well, one day your time's going to come. And so it's best to start getting yourself geared and ready. And I keep saying if I leave here, well, I'm going to leave here one day. But the fact of the matter is, you must be prepared. And I hope that I just sleep away from here. I don't want to be suffering. No, I want to sleep away from here and just don't wake up. But our teachers were great teachers.
Right.
Most of them went to black schools, and they came back and they taught us. And that's why most of us are pretty good at Black history.
Right.
And I have a good friend of mine that I have lunch with every Friday, and we talk about Black history, and he doesn't know anything about Blacks. And then I started thinking, I said, well, maybe, just maybe, they didn't teach Black history back then. And they didn't, which I didn't know that. So we had a jump start on them. We knew about Blacks. We knew about whites. So we were well-rounded. And as far as integration, that started when junior high came around.
Gotcha.
And I remember I only had one fight in my life. And this one guy whipped out the N-word.
Oh boy.
And I told him, I'll tell you what we can do. We could go out on the basketball court.
Right.
At Grant. Because, it was concrete over there.
Yeah.
And I said, now we can settle this. So after about 2 minutes, it was over.
Got you.
Because I always had quick hands and feet. There are some people who thought that I should have been a boxer.
Oh boy.
But you remember Harry Weinberg?
I'm familiar with it.
Harry said, Al, you would have been a great boxer until someone hit you.
Uh-oh.
And then you were through. And Harry always cracked on me.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed watching boxing. But it was a fun time growing up in Portsmouth. These guys,
Right.
we would stand on 14th
Mm-hmm.
and Waller and talk more trash. And we never would get mad at each other.
Right.
You know, because we really liked each other. And the thing that was so funny about Al Oliver
Mm-hmm.
is that I grew up having a stuttering problem.
Really?
When I was in grade school.
Wow.
But people wouldn't know that unless they grew up with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result of that, excuse me, I was kind of quiet
Mm-hmm.
and laid back. And Glenn Gilchrist,
Mm-hmm.
who was one of the best crackers you've ever been around.
Uh-oh.
Glenn, I'm going to tell you about Glenn. He said, now, one thing about Al, he always liked the good-looking girls, but he wouldn't approach them.
Got you.
He wouldn't approach them. You would have to pour some hot water on him to wake him up to go talk to one of them. And in grade school, we had some good-looking girls,
Mm-hmm.
but about 3 or 4 of them left because their dads had to leave to get better jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. I stayed in touch with them for quite some time. And we lost one about 4 years ago. I had talked to her and I got in touch with her and found out that she had cancer. And she didn't last long, maybe about a year or so. But at least I did get in touch with her,
Right.
which I felt good about. And I had a couple crushes, but we're not going there today.
We don't need to go.
No.
So like, share, subscribe. Welcome. We are here still at the Roots and Routes. We are with the legendary Mr. Al Oliver, aka Scoop. Let's give us a little insight of how that nickname came about, Scoop. So is that a early age, or is that okay? So that was a childhood age.
1965.
Wow. So
I
do you remember who gave you the nickname?
I do. The owner of the ball club. You know, I had this ability of scooping the balls up out of the dirt.
Got you.
You know, you couldn't throw a ball by me if you tried because I always had the good hands.
Yeah.
And they started calling me Scoop. And then the manager of the ball club at Gastonia,
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina, is where I got this name Scoop. And a lot of people don't know how I got that name.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they know now. It was because I was a first baseman.
Right.
And I had this ability of being able to scoop the balls up out of the dirt, you know, from the bad throws. I made some of those infielders look good. And so that's how Scoop came about. And I've always liked that name,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Scoop, because it fit me.
Right.
And when I came to the big leagues,
Mm-hmm.
they still called me Scoop, but still the people really didn't know
Okay.
where Scoop originated. But it originated in Gastonia, North Carolina.
Wow.
Home of James Worthy.
Okay, I didn't realize James Worthy was from
James Worthy
there. Got you.
was Gastonia, North Carolina.
Awesome. So now we got a little more insight, a little more knowledge, and now you know where the nickname Scoop came from. I love it. So there's a couple things I want to go with in this particular part of the conversation. You talked about him earlier. I want you to give a little bit of to speak on how great of a teammate that one Roberto Clemente was, a great of a player that he was.
I'll tell you what, he was definitely the greatest player that I ever played with. Roberto was a great human being. He had a great arm. He could hit for average and power.
Right.
And what cracked me up was when I first came up as a first baseman,
Mm-hmm.
he told me when they get a single, most first basemen usually, turn their back and kind of circle back around the runner.
Mm-hmm.
But he told me don't ever do that because he likes to throw behind the runner sometimes
Okay.
if they make a big turn. And we picked off a couple of them, and it was absolutely hilarious to see some of them scuffle back to first base. Roberto had him, and that was his thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about Roberto that I really enjoyed was the fact that after losing my dad in '68, the same day I found out that I was coming to the major leagues,
Wow.
I left his funeral. I drove to Pittsburgh to join the Pirates, and I drove by myself. I thought I was tough anyway. I had this brand new 1968 Buick Riviera. I was cruising up in Pittsburgh and all that. But I really dealt with Dad's death because he was sick. He worked at Harbison Walker Brickyard.
Okay.
And that dust out there had accumulated. And we lost quite a few people
Mm-hmm.
that lived here for that same reason.
Wow.
And I remember one morning he came home,
Mm-hmm.
and I heard the door crack. I said, dang, that's unusual. Because he usually doesn't come home to about 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was up, and he came in and he said, son, he said, I don't feel good.
Oh, wow.
Now, when Dad says he doesn't feel good,
that's saying a lot.
it's time to call the National Guard. I mean, really, because he never complained about nothing.
Right.
And so I got him a doctor's appointment.
Okay.
And we went to the doctor. And that's when the doctor said what he had. And it was really nothing that he could do with that.
Right.
But just fight through it. And he did. It got worse and worse and worse. And this was in '66.
Wow.
But if there was a positive about that, in '68,
Mm-hmm.
I was playing in Columbus. I was close.
Right.
So I was able to come home
Mm-hmm.
and visit with him.
Right.
And the one thing he told me that I would never forget, and that's when I knew he knew that he was going to leave here.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you take care of your brother and sister.
Wow.
And when he told me that,
Mm-hmm.
I said, it's done. That's what I told him. And he always had a lot of confidence in me.
Mm-hmm.
Always did. And so I did the best that I could do
Right.
with both of them. Paula eventually married a good man.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Jimmy struggled a little bit because Jimmy was so young
Okay.
that he really couldn't relate to what was really going on. But I tried to do the best that he could do.
So what was your relationship like with your siblings coming up? Where obviously it sounds like you was more almost like a father figure to him, or was you more like okay?
And I tell Felicia this all the time. I said, Felicia, Paula and Jimmy and I, we never had an argument.
Wow.
Siblings usually argue about something.
Yeah.
Now, I will admit, I used to tease Paula.
Okay.
And the hallways back then were about this wide.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time she went and got a knife. Now,
oh boy,
how I got past her made me think maybe I should have gone out for football.
Yeah, he had some moves.
I had some moves.
So did you play football?
Yes. My last year was playing football at Notre Dame.
Okay.
And then after that, Bill Apel
Mm-hmm.
comes to Portsmouth High School.
Right.
And Bill was tough. I mean, he had guys, they couldn't drink water.
Mm.
I mean, he made them suffer.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, he made them suffer. And
it's a different type of animal to play football.
It is.
It can be.
It was. But we had some good football players like Bob Jackson.
Okay.
Shirley Parker's brother.
Okay.
He still looks good. Kavanaugh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, most people wouldn't believe that Ralph was a halfback, but Ralph could run.
Right.
And we had some guys that could fly. Like my buddy across the street, JP,
Mm-hmm.
he was on the track team. JP could run.
Okay.
He could run, but we have been. Who was the fastest?
Uh-oh.
Now, we kind of bait this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have myself, you had Larry,
Mm-hmm.
you had Eugene Miller,
Mhm.
who went to Notre Dame.
Okay.
We had Fred Fox. We had little Deke Malone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had some guys who could flat out fly.
Gotcha.
And if you were on the side watching us run,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't know who won. It was that close.
Wow.
And if you ask JP right now, who was the fastest, and you know how JP
He still.
he said, "Oh man, what you talking about?" He said, "What you talking about?" Al knows who was the fastest, but we all could run, man, and we had so much fun growing up.
Right.
It was just unbelievable. But talking about Clemente, what made him the person that he was the way that he left here. He was making sure some goods were going to be sent over to Managua. And so they say the plane was loaded.
Mm-hmm.
But Roberto was the type of guy, if he made his mind up, he was going.
Got you.
Now, Roberto helped me when I came up because Dad was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so he told me, he said, be careful about what you say to these writers
Mm-hmm.
because they can take your confidence
Right.
and turn it around
It's a shame.
into something
That is not
negative.
right.
And I was far from being negative.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I was almost too positive and too confident,
Right.
like he was.
Mm-hmm.
And they got it all messed up. And that carried on for quite some time. You know, people thought I was a certain way in which I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Roberto, they had him provide his first 3 years or so, had him a certain way,
Right.
but he wasn't like that. He was a great human being
Mm-hmm.
who cared about people, and that's how he left here.
Wow.
If he had to come back,
Mm-hmm.
he would say the same thing. He would do it all over again. And to lose him was awful.
So just as a refresher, could you kind of give the audience what happened with Roberto Clemente, how he ended up passing away?
Yes. Roberto was the type of person, he always cared about people.
Mm-hmm.
That was his thing. He cared about people. He found out that the goods were not being sent to the proper people over in Managua.
Wow.
So he took it upon himself to load up a plane to go to Managua to make sure the goods were being sent to the proper people. And on takeoff,
Wow.
the plane went straight down in the water,
Wow.
never to be found again. And it must have been about 3 o'clock in the morning. My phone rings,
Mm-hmm.
and it's Willie Stargell.
Wow.
He said, "Scoot, I just got this call from Puerto Rico, and they said a plane had just gone down in the sea, and Roberto was supposed to be on board."
Man.
I mean, I came up out of that bed. I had to go take a shower
Mm-hmm.
because to lose someone like that,
Right.
who meant so much to the young players like myself,
Yep.
St. Gian,
Mm-hmm.
Doc Ellis,
Wow.
it was a major blow. And probably one of the worst days of my life as a major league player was opening day,
Mm-hmm.
1973.
Okay.
His wife was there. His kids were there. His brother was there.
Mm-hmm.
All the dignitaries from the Pirates were there.
Right.
They were going to retire his number. And I'm going to tell you something. It was not a dry eye
Wow.
in that stadium. And I'm not a crier,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't hold back tears.
Right.
I just couldn't do it because I had lost someone who was so important,
Mm-hmm.
not only to me, but to the community and to the world. And that's the thing that hurt me more than anything else. Those same sports writers that talked about him early in his career, now, all of a sudden, he's a great humanitarian.
Wow.
You know, if I was an angry
That's
man,
a shame.
I think I would have gone up there and knocked a few of them upside their head because they deserved it.
Right.
You know,
Got you.
how can you go from
Yeah.
being cocky and a hypochondriac
Mm-hmm.
to a great humanitarian? That's the kind of guy that he was.
Right.
He would come to you if he thought that you needed some help as a player. And most people were intimidated by him.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't intimidated by him because our personalities were very similar.
Right.
And so that was it.
So I think that's part of the reason we're doing this podcast, because we want to give a chance and opportunity for people to tell their side of the story, you know, because a lot of times people can be painted in a bad light.
Yes.
And media is a very powerful tool. It can be used for good, and unfortunately, it can be also used for bad. So obviously, when it comes, we want to connect the dots between people's and their lives, how they came to be, and hopefully give those that are watching, those that are listening, a broader perspective, hopefully an opportunity to appreciate the people that come to this table. At the Roots and Routes podcast, share, subscribe. We're on forums, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and that much more. We're going to continue to put amazing content. We're here, Mr. Al Oliver. It's been a great conversation so far. We got more to come. So right now, the next part I want to talk is kind of the lineup. So how would we describe that? Would we call it the minority night, or how would you, if you was to put out a tweet right now, how would you describe it? And was it pre-planned? Was it something that you was not aware of while it was happening, or what discussed that?
All right. Here we go.
Here we go. Buckle up, everybody.
Here we go. First of all, I would consider that an all minority team.
Right.
And I did not know that we had an all minority team on the field that night.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
Woody Fryman, who pitched for Philadelphia at that time, left-hander. Either I would be doing one or two things. Either I'd have been in center field that night, and Bob Robertson would have been playing first base against a left-hander. Because at that time, they paid me, they set me down against certain left-handers.
Yeah.
And Woody was a tough pitcher to face. But Bob Robertson didn't play. I played first base that night.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, Bob does not know why he didn't play that night.
Oh, wow.
And here I am playing first base, unaware that we had all these brothers out there.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, in about the second or third inning, I remember, I was talking to Dave Cash. And I said, Dave, you know what, man? We got all these brothers out here, man. You know. He said, Al, you're right. We got a whole load of brothers out there in that field. But
y'all was tough.
Ooh,
Y'all was tough.
We were tough, and you know what was tough? Manny St. Gian said to Clemente, "We better win this game."
I know that's
because they might have been talking.
right.
But you know what was ironic about that night was the Pittsburgh newspaper was on strike.
Oh wow!
And so we didn't get a lot of play, but you know, as history now, and as far as I'm concerned, Danny Murtaugh, in his mind, wasn't concerned about an all-minority team.
Right.
He said
he's trying to win.
He put the best team he thought would win that night, and I just so happened to have got 2 hits off Woody Fryman that night. So he must have known something.
Right.
And we just had a great team loaded with minorities. And, you know, there's 9 on the field. And we had like 4 or 5 on the bench. And that was rare. And especially when Doc Ellis was pitching. You know, we really was full go in.
Yeah.
and that's the kind of team we had. We had a whole lot of guys that could talk some trash. And I'll be honest with you, if the opposing pitcher would have heard us in the clubhouse talking, they would have never taken them out.
Right.
That's how much confidence we had. And see, I was one of those guys, you know, Doc Ellis, he was the leader. He was stirred up. And I would be over my locker just laughing. That was me. I never got into it. Well, see, the guys on the team knew how to get me going. You know, they knew what button to push.
Right.
To get me going. And then when they did that, we were ready to go. Because somebody would say, "Oh, you can't hit this pitcher." I said, "Man, who you talking to?" I said, "Man, if he has a ball,
watch.
I'm going to hit him." And so that's kind of the kind of team that we had. It was just amazing how we got along. And back then, you know, there was no politics or talking about religion. I'm quite sure a lot of those guys now are not of the same political party, but we had one thing in common, and that was bring a world championship.
So
back to Pittsburgh.
Let's talk about that, Mr. Oliver. So, what do you remember most about that '71 season when y'all wind up becoming World Series champs? Was there a point in time earlier in your career you felt like y'all had a really good team, y'all could win it all, and then that particular season, what did you feel like? Was there a low point that you were like, well, let's just keep grinding? Or you probably always was confident that y'all could do something, but I want to kind of gaze into your mindset, especially in the '71 season.
Okay. What led us into '71 winning was the 1970 season. That was our first divisional championship. You know, we lost to the Reds. We never could beat the Reds in the playoffs. You know, I mean, you know, we sent the Reds to 3 World Series, and at least they'd be kind to send us a check or something for sending them to the World Series. But we never could. We never could beat the Reds. And so after the '70 season, we knew we had a good team. '71, we started putting players together on an everyday basis, not platooning.
Okay.
Because, you know, in order to be better, you got to play every day. You know, that sometimes playing, you know, doesn't bring out the best in you.
Got you.
And then in '71, we pretty much played everybody every day. And, of course, in '72 was a year that was better. We had a better team in '72 than we had in '71. But that was the year that we lost on a wild pitch to the Reds.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we were winning going into the bottom of the ninth. And I'm out there in center field. I'm counting my World Series check because I just knew we were going back.
Absolutely.
I knew we were going back to World Series. And then all of a sudden, that big head Johnny Bench. John comes up and hits a home run to right field.
Oh, my.
And see, John never hits the ball to right field home runs.
Okay.
He usually pulled the ball. That tied the game.
Mm-hmm.
And George Foster, some way, somehow got on third base. And Hal McRae was the hitter. And we brought in Dave Justy. He wanted to bring in Dave Justy because he was our relief pitcher. And that's why some people felt that we should have left Ramon Hernandez in there because he had about 10 pitches. And I don't think John could have, he had no idea what he was going to throw up there.
Right.
You know, because Dave Justy threw a palm ball. And Rennie Stennett always said that was the most expensive palm ball that he's ever seen. But that's the kind of stuff that we did. And we walked off the field. No one had any excuses. But you know what was so ironic about losing that game? That was the last game Roberto Clemente was to play.
Wow.
But we just didn't know that at that time. We didn't know. We didn't know.
Yeah, that's the ironic thing about life. You know, tomorrow's not promised to none of us, and it's always good to, love and appreciate those that you're connected with, and also, give flowers to where flowers are due. So that's again part of the reason we wanted to also bring you on to the Roots and Route podcast to kind of salute you, show the appreciation, just as far as you've shown a positive light to Portsmouth, just being the man that you are, man that you continue to be, and being a beaming example of perseverance. And again, this is season 1, episode 15. Life is a hit. So what does that particular statement mean to you? Life is a hit. Where did that come from? It was just a mantra that you come up with, or how did that come about?
Gerald, it came out of nowhere. And once it came out, I said, life's a hit, don't strike out. When you think about it, life for all of us is a hit. But we can't strike out. We got to do what is right. See, and regardless of what group I talk to, it fits. Life is a hit. Don't strike out. But the problem is, in today's society, more so than ever, we have too many people, parents, that are striking out. They're no longer raising their children in the manner in which they should. And some of them, they're the ones that need to be in a program. Quiet as kept.
Got you.
And you just can't allow your children to run a household. And my thing has always been, how can children run their household when they don't have a job? Now when you start working and go on your own, then that's something different.
Right.
But parents today are too lenient with their children. I made a statement the other day. Like I say, every Friday we go out. And I said, you know what? If one of my kids, Aaron or Felisa, ever talk back to me, they will be picking themselves up. And this guy looks at me like I'm crazy.
Wow.
I said, what am I supposed to do? Let them talk to me in any way they want to? I mean, it's not that I'm old school. It's just something that should be done.
Right.
And you know what? I'm a disciplinarian. I believe in being disciplined, but that doesn't mean all the time that you got to whip them. But some of our children today, as we know, need to be whipped. And when we were growing up, it didn't take no more than 2 or 3 whippings. And you straighten out.
Learn.
Yeah, I mean, I had to go out there and get a switch. And as strong as my dad was, I mean, I would rather have gone to the electric chair than to got a whipping from dad. But luckily I got one, and that was enough. But you know, I sat back and I think, way back, my mother told dad when I was 3 or 4 years old, she told dad that Junior is going to be a ball player.
Wow.
She told him that.
Yeah.
Because I think that too, she was married to an athlete. So she knew. And you know, back in the day, you know, you would have a rubber ball, you throw it up against the steps, and you know, you always have those quick hands and things like, and she saw that. And she really saw that early. And as it turned out, she was right. And it's just so funny that she picked up on that early.
Right.
And that's just like today. Last Saturday when I went into the Power Hall of Fame, I can hear Dad saying this. That's my son. That's all he would say. That's all he would say. That's my son.
So let's pause right there real quick. So that was just this past week. Is it correct? You got a phone call, and they more or less said 2025 Pittsburgh Pirate Hall of Fame. How did that actually?
That's a good question.
Come about?
Yeah, I mean, it came kind of stagecoach wise. The assistant to the president of the Pittsburgh Pirates called me one day. And, you know, when people call you, their name usually shows up on the phone. And I said, nothing.
Oh.
He's the vice president of the Pirates.
Boy.
Now, I know he's not calling me just to be talking. And he said, Al, you were one of the greats that played in Pittsburgh. I'm old enough to know I saw you play. And what I want to know is if by chance, if you were one of the ones who were chosen, would you accept? And I told him that I would accept. Okay, well, I didn't give it no more thought. So in another week, here comes the preacher man, Ty. Ty said, people, he didn't call you for nothing.
Right. He knew.
See, Ty, I'm going to tell you, Ty's smart. He really is. And he said, you going. He said about 3 or 4 times, you going. I said, okay, Ty. See, Ty knows I'm the type, I had to see it.
Yeah, to believe it.
Right. And so that would have been on maybe a Tuesday. And he said that we'll have some people give you a call later to give you all the details. And so it would have been Monday. I was coming from Ashland. And the PR guy, I saw his name pop up. And I said, uh-oh. I said, this must be it. So I said, Joe, hold on. Let me pull off the side of the road.
I know that's right.
I got a feeling what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And I know you have never called me in all these years. with anything negative. So I pulled off the side.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, I'm ready. He said, Scoop, you're going in. And I'm glad for you. I have to admit, I thought that maybe you should have gone in maybe a couple times before this one.
Right.
But it never bothered me. But it bothered the fans.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, what about Al Oliver? I mean, what's the deal?
Yeah.
I mean, here's a guy that played on 5 divisional championships in Pittsburgh and a World Series. And so it came, and I said, now, they're going to announce it on Saturday. I said, do I need to tell anybody? And he said, Scoop, if you could, hold off until Saturday. But the only one I told was Ty. I can trust Ty.
Yeah.
Now, Fleesa, I can trust, but it would have been killing her.
Right. I got you.
Yeah. I don't know if she could have held it in the manner in which it should be held. But I told Fleece, I said, Fleece, something is going to happen this week. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
And here she comes.
Uh-oh.
Did someone call you? Say,
yeah, you already planted the seed now.
I have planted the seed. Yeah. But I've never seen Ty so happy.
That's awesome.
I mean, he wanted his people in that Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
Because he knew I belonged.
Mm-hmm.
And like Fleesa said, that she's never seen Ty that happy. Ty is taking care of the tickets, and if people want tickets or they want details, he's taking all of that because he feels that this is my day. Mm-hmm. And I don't need to be bothered with everybody else. And I said, okay. And he's the type of guy, he can handle it. Mm-hmm. He can do it. So they're flying Aaron and his wife and 2 daughters in.
So what's the date? What's the date on it again?
August 22nd.
August 22nd
is when they're going to introduce us to the fans.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Hey, all my Rooter Routers, put them together. Salute. Long overdue, and it's an honor. It's been a privilege. Let's real quickly. Let's look at some of these comments on the screen here, man. There's a lot of people watching, and they're saying thank you and congratulations. And so there's a young man. His name is BJ Blanton. I'm gonna bring his screen. He says, "Hey, congratulations to you in the Hall of Fame, Joe Ruth Jordan. She's wanted to let it be known that she's watching. She says congratulations." And she reminisced. She was reminiscing about Mrs. Taylor, Mrs. Gilmore, and Green. Let's continue on. Brady Womack, he talked about Kenny Street, which is now known as Al Oliver Way. That's another accolade and something that really shows your upbringing right there on Kenny Street.
Him and Jimmy were real tight.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, they were tight.
He talked about him a lot on his episode. He talked about the great rebounder that he was as a basketball player too. That's great that the connections that we have as a community.
Right.
It's very important.
Very.
Nelson Wilson, he says Pirates Hall of Fame, Al Oliver. That's awesome. Of course, my mom commented on here. She just reiterated life's a hit. Obadiah Harris from up there in Chillicothe, he says congratulations, Al.
Okay.
Your nephew, Eli Johnson, he says, congratulations, Uncle Al. So it's a lot of people that's been, I'm sure, cheering on and looking forward to this moment. Hopefully it's also a precursor to something even greater. The best is yet to come. Once again, Mr. Oliver, it's been my pleasure to be able to bring you to the Roots and Routes podcast. You got any final words or shout outs that you want to give out to anybody in social media world, into the digital world?
Well, the one thing that I can say is, as we always say, God is good.
Yes.
When you've lived a good life, to the best of your ability. He does take care of his children, and sometimes it may not come when you want it to come. But in this particular situation, it was right on time, and I owe him all the credit,
Right.
along with my parents. And I had some good friends that I grew up with that really was a big plus to me. They kept me laughing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But God gets all the glory for this. He knew that I was going in before I did.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish you'd have told me. But but the fact of the matter is, he did it, and I feel good about it. I'm just glad that I have good kids, good grandkids.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of friends, but the friends that I do have are good ones.
That's awesome.
And I feel good about that. I get a kick out of Joe Ruth. We grew up on Kennedy Street, and I'll tell you what, we and Laverne, oh, we had some good times, man.
Awesome.
I'll tell you, Kennedy Street was something back then.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I always remember, it was called Emmanuel Tabernacle.
Right. Yeah.
When I was growing up. And I would say one thing.
Mm-hmm.
They knew how to praise the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, they kept me up at night. And I think they
yeah, I bet they did.
I think they forgot I had to go to school the next day.
I love it.
But those are the things that you don't forget. And I'm just glad that I was raised at that time,
right,
under the right people and around the right people. And that is the reason why I have been able to maintain losing a brother and sister that was younger, but I'm still here for a reason.
Absolutely. So we're still here at the Roots and Routes podcast. Like, share, subscribe. We are on all the digital platforms. It's just, once again, it's been a pleasure and honor to have someone of your caliber to come to the table, to be able to just chop it up with you and just kind of learn and listen and kind of even reminisce with you. But you gave me a great peek into what it was like growing up here. So now we got homecoming that's coming up this 4th of July summer. So July 4th weekend, it's going to be a lot of people hopefully come back to the North End. It's a wonderful pleasure to be able to really touch bases with a lot of people that we, kind of grew up around. So I'll let you have the final words, Mr. Oliver.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you didn't forget me. I know I was sitting around not too long ago listening to your show with Danny Reed, and I have stopped laughing yet. I mean, he was in rare form.
He was in rare form.
And I don't know if I could ever top that one. But I didn't go into a lot of the stories that happened in the Pirate Clubhouse. Now is not the right time. But we were a team that pulled for one another. And that's the thing that I really enjoyed. If one of our hitters got hit by an opposing pitcher, our pitcher would retaliate and deck.
That's a team.
As a team.
That's a team.
I mean, but that was a great team to play on and to play in the middle of Stargell and Clemente in the outfield.
Wow.
After being a first baseman your whole life, you go out there and, I had to be pretty good.
Yes, absolutely.
I could have gone out there and embarrassed myself. But the one thing that I did know, I could run and I could catch a ball. But my arm wasn't as strong as I would have liked for it to be because I had played first base all my life.
Yeah.
And it took me about a year, for my arm to be strengthened. And my second year, it came around, and I felt that I was part of an outstanding outfield. And the best way I can put it is this: Stargell, Oliver, and Clemente are back together again.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Them was legendary names. And to me, you're one of the legends of the game as well. So, once again, this is season 1, episode 15. I know I said we about to sign off, but I do got one more question. So, we call this episode "Life's a Hit." They say hitting's one of the hardest things in all of sports. They say it's the hardest thing in all of sport. So, what pointers or what tips do you try to give to young athletes when they are, in the batting cages or just learning the game of baseball? What's one thing that you look for, or just any type of advice that you would give to a hitter?
All right, if you are a right-hand hitter and they throw you a pitch that's outside, hit it to right field. If you're a left-hand hitter and they throw you outside, hit it to left field. Don't try to pull.
Okay.
Because, see, if you are a left-hand hitter and you try to pull an outside pitch, you're going to hit the ball to the second baseman. And if you're a right-hand hitter and you try to pull it, you're going to hit it to the shortstop. So just let the ball fly. Wherever it goes, let it go. And like I always said, and former players I played against said, when Al comes to the plate, the infielders have to put on their shin guards. And the outfielders had to put on their track shoes.
You coming at them.
I'm coming at them. I'm coming at them.
I like it.
Yes. I never was afraid of any pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that I could hit any pitcher.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you said that because that reminded me. So my friend had asked me before I got here, he wanted me to ask you, like, who was the toughest pitcher that you faced? Like the hardest pitcher, or I don't know how you wanted to interpret the question, but someone that you can look back and remember and be like, yeah, he was pretty tough.
Okay. I'm going to try to be as humble as I possibly can be.
Go ahead and flex on him there, Mr. Oliver. Go ahead and flex on him if you want to.
The one pitcher that made me hit his pitches on a consistent basis was Steve Carlton.
Okay.
I knew how he was going to pitch me. He was going to be a fastball in and a slider away. And if I did hit a slider away, it was usually hit hard at the shortstop, being a left-hand hitter. He never made me look bad. But if you looked at my batting average against him, it was weak. And I always said, if a guy can't hit his weight, he shouldn't be in the game. And so I looked at what I hit against him, and I couldn't believe it. I hit 2 pounds. I barely made it. But I would say Steve Carlton, on a consistent basis, made me hit his pitches.
Awesome. Well, listen, once again, Roots and Routes Podcast, Season 1, Episode 15. We entitled this episode, Life's a Hit. And it's been a pleasure, a privilege, an honor to be able to have you to come to the Roots and Routes Podcast. So I hate to put you on the spot, but I do have one last request before we sign off. If there's anybody that you could think of that would be a great interview to be able to bring to the Roots and Routes Podcast, someone that you feel like would be able to give a great conversation piece and really shed light on whatever they end up talking about. Who would that particular person?
Does he have to be local?
He could be whoever. Like if you could pull it off for us, that get him here. Local would be great. Not local would be awesome as well. So just someone that you enjoy talking to or being able to hear from.
I know most of my buddies are out of town.
We can do virtual. We can bring them on.
I'll tell you a good one who's really a true Christian man. And I don't know if you've heard of Johnny LeMaster. He was a shortstop for the San Francisco Giants.
I'm gonna do my research.
And he does podcasts and things of that nature.
Okay.
Great guy.
Well,
I'll take on that one.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just for context, we got something in the works. So I'm gonna trust Mr. Oliver's going to bring somebody to our table and hopefully help our show out a little bit. But on top of that, I think this has been a great episode. Like I learned a lot. I did learn a lot, and like I said, you kind of peeled back a couple layers about yourself as well.
Yeah.
Let the audience hear and listen. Some may know you, some may not. So
right.
But overall, it's been my pleasure once again. Here we at the Roots and Routes. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, God bless. Good night. Thank you, Mr. Oliver.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Great episode.